Zoom, I did spot that we have Supervisor Manko on Zoom as well as the town of Sharon. And she is the oversight chair for both the occupancy tax and community planning that happens out of county government. So she has a significant role. So I'm going to stop share this screen. Thank you for your help. And we're going to let Peter Fairweather take center stage. And I'm not sure how you can do that here. Do you want me to find him on here?
Well, it's like I'm gonna change this
Okay.
real quick.
Yeah, I'm going to share the
Peter.
screen.
So we'll need to see him. Peter, we're going to turn your sound up in just a second.
Okay.
We were really pleased with the response and RSVPs for the program today. We have representatives like Gina Pappas from Fulton Montgomery Schoharie Workforce Development. Gina's relatively new to her post, but she's been around workforce development for a career for 20 or so years. We have Carolyn Proper with Schoharie County Community Action Program, also workforce development in the room. We have Christina Hanks, that's with our tourism sector, our cultural arts, as a chair of the Iroquois Indian Museum and advocate for all things cultural in Schoharie County. We also have on screen with us, we have a couple of superintendents from the school districts that have joined us today. Supervisor Sang, and I think Supervisor Price from Middleburg. Sang is from Jefferson. So there's a real interest in participating in economic development that way. I'll stop talking whenever you
So
need me to.
it should be, you should have sound now. You should
Peter.
be coming through.
Yeah, testing. Is that good? Can
We're
people hear?
almost there.
Almost there.
All right.
As many of you know, Peter did host focus groups, stakeholder interviews, and such 5 years ago, back in 2018. His plan was commissioned by Schoharie County government. It has been our playbook since he started in 2019. We did check in with Peter during the COVID crisis. There he is, during the COVID crisis, and he's going to walk through his recommendations from 5 years ago and tell us whether or not they're relevant today. Fair, Peter, are you ready?
Yes, I am. I hope everybody
Yes.
can hear me.
Here you go.
Right, and let me share the screen. How's that? Everybody can see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So as you can see, this is essentially the presentation from November 13th, 2018. I'm going to go through this relatively quickly. It's really the latter half of this, I think, that's most germane to our discussion. But this will give you a sense of what the process involved. And it's always a treat to get the first slide to advance. All right, there we go. At that time, here was the agenda. We talked about the process. It was originally scheduled for an 8-month process. It went a little bit longer because of the outreach that was involved, but it involved data analysis, GIS mapping of all the towns by EDR, which was a planning firm that was part of the team that put together the report, and over 30 interviews, focus groups, and community discussions. So there was a pretty extensive outreach to, we tried to cover the full geography of Schoharie County. And let me just talk a little bit about the findings. First of all, the county's economy is on the edge of 3 regional economies: the Mohawk Valley, the Albany metro area, and the greater central New York region. And you can see the maps there and how Schoharie County fits into each of them. But you can see it's on the edge of each of those regions. And that has some implications for how the counties compete, and we'll talk about that once we get. I just want to briefly go through the SWOT analysis, the analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that we did for this process, and talk about the opportunities we identified, and then discuss how it relates to the fact that the county is on the edge of each of these regional economies. You know, starting with the threats, at the time we saw them as inaction, not taking action, which I think you've done a very good job avoiding that threat. It sounds like there's been a lot of things going on in a variety of sectors, from the academic sector to the work that seeks been done to the downtowns and so on. Acceleration of the concentration of high value added activity in metropolitan centers. And again, COVID actually helped dampen that trend a little bit. Continued retail disruption and its impact on the centers. And again, COVID played an interesting role where, and in many cases, the larger centers in the economy, like New York City, had some difficulties, but a lot of the places where people were shifting their locations to because of the opportunities for remote work, the desire to get out of large centers, really benefited from that. And you know, one of the threats that was specific to Schoharie County is kind of the burnout, given that there's at the time a limited cadre of volunteers. You know, if the same 4 people try to take on everything, pretty soon they're not going to be willing to do that much longer. So those are threats. Weaknesses. Let me just. Economic development activities were almost all isolated or siloed at the time. Slow growth in middle skills workforce, not a problem unique to Schoharie County, but that idea of, you know, folks that are or jobs that require, let's say, somewhere between a high school to diploma to an associate's degree. It was, even then, before COVID, it was difficult to find folks for those skills, and that's, you know, COVID didn't help it with that much at all. Limited transportation access other than I-88, low diversity in agriculture, no shovel-ready sites, limited lodging options, the condition of the municipal infrastructure, you know, again, not unique to Schoharie County, but, you know, the villages have, for the most part, aging sewer and water infrastructure. And generally, you know, at the time, there was a lack of confidence as a community. There was this sense that came out of the interviews that I'm not sure that we're up to this. You know, that we may be just stuck taking the leavings of what else is going on in the economy in the area. I don't, you know, there was really doubts about whether Schoharie County could play a leadership role. Strengths: the existing cadre of economic development entrepreneurs and organizations. You know, there was a lot of activity that was taking place kind of under the radar that really had a lot of potential for Schoharie County. Strong workforce development providers that we've already talked about a little bit. SUNY Cobleskill as an economic catalyst. Anchor is just a good word, but the word I used at the time was catalyst. A diversity of successful businesses, multiple interchanges on I-88, and also the village centers, even the ones that may not have been thriving economically, still had good bones. You know, they were walkable, attractive architecture, and with a little TLC would be able to play an important role economically. So the opportunities, the sectors or clusters of opportunity: ag and food, advanced manufacturing, tourism and the arts, the villages, distribution, high value added services. And I think those have pretty much been borne out. The other opportunities: creating a sustained workforce development initiative. And this is a long-standing opportunity, I think, facing a lot of places. That right now, there's a lot of focus and attention on workforce development. But eventually, you know, and by mid to late this year, the economy will start to soften. And usually at that point, based upon 3 or 4 cycles I've been through, all the focus on economic development, workforce development dissipates, because suddenly the crisis is past. But if Schoharie County can continue the work it's doing on workforce development during the next slowdown, it will come out of it with a much stronger advantage in terms of workforce. And then also drawing from all 3 regions that we talked about for target opportunities, target industries. And so again, with the county on the periphery of those 3 regional economies, and its own economy, pretty much rural in nature, how does Schoharie County compete? And really the answer that was provided in our work was that the county must become a place that supports high value added activity, that, where high value added firms can find a home, where firms that are in the area can add value. The extra value that firms can generate for customers puts those firms in a better position to participate in existing value chains, a network of buyers and suppliers that collaborate in delivering goods and services. Whether those are in the Mohawk Valley, Albany, the greater central New York area, or across the globe. That whole idea is if your business can add value in new and in some cases unexpected ways, you suddenly become much more attractive to your potential customers. And again, historically, the model for that has been agriculture. And you've seen the work that ag entrepreneurs have been doing really over the last 50 years in terms of dealing with the questions of the dairy industry in Schoharie. That there's real pressure there because you can't get the land base that you can in places like Wyoming County or Ontario County. You've got smaller farms. So if you wanted to stick with the traditional model of dairy farming, good luck with that. You won't be able to keep your costs low enough. So you have to find ways to drive value rather than just decrease costs. And that's really that whole question of making Schoharie County a home for businesses that add value to their enterprises is key to this. And there's 4 dimensions to this we identified. First, appropriate policies and regulations intended to create a conducive business environment. Trying to minimize paperwork, ensure that regulations carry out their purpose without being an excessive burden on business. Second, hard connectivity that physically links businesses to sites with essential services. And, that's sewer and water. This is an example of some of the mapping that EDR did as we were looking at potential sites and infrastructure, but also obviously internet connections as well. So making sure that sites are connected to the services that they need. That's the hard connectivity. And then soft connectivity, linking organizations and people together to foster economic productivity. This includes, you can see the list here, a qualified and educated labor force, policies and institutions necessary to attract talent. Because if we're talking about businesses that are adding value to their goods or services, a key to that is, do they have access to the kind of talent they need to foster the innovation that's required? And the SUNY Cobleskill video just gave a great examples of the talent that's being cultivated and that's going to be required. A strong supplier base of investors, and this is something that may not be entirely local in nature, but clearly the economic development organizations need to be working together to ensure that there's adequate opportunities for investment. Innovation and R&D policies to foster that kind of upgrading. And again, the SUNY Cobleskill video was a sort of an encyclopedia of some of the things that can be done. Trade facilitation and logistics policies to expedite the movement of goods. Some of that is obviously national in scope, but also, locally making sure you've got the road infrastructure, power, and other kinds of connectivity that enable those movements of goods. And policies and decisions that link and involve people. And among other things, to get the work done that needs to be done to build high value added activities, but also to improve a sense of positive identification with the community and enhance community branding. And the image from in the middle of this slide of Schoharie County is just an example of the tremendous potential that the county has in terms of the quality of life it offers and can offer, and its ability to bring together the network of people that can foster the value-added activities that are required. And lastly, institutional capacity measured by shared leadership and vision. And the image that I use here is, this is a pile of iron filings. And if you want to make it something other than just a random collection of scrap metal, there's two things you could do. One is you could spend a lot of time carefully manipulating by hand each of those filings to make sure that they cohere into a pattern that works, or you can just throw a magnet in the middle of the pile and suddenly it becomes a coherent pattern. And that's where institutional capacity really makes a difference. If you've got shared leadership and vision, then suddenly things start to organize themselves. People start to buy into shared concepts. People start to buy into shared initiatives. And then suddenly what was once maybe a disorganized, isolated series of actors turns into a coherent system that can support the work that's needed to be done. So those are the four principles. And just I want to conclude with what the structure would look like. And again, in the recommendation in the original report was for a standalone economic development organization, private sector driven, agile, independent. Clearly what the SEEK is the outgrowth of this whole process based on those principles. But it's more than that, because in a sense, that organization is really just the catalytic center of the whole process, but there are a whole series of partners that are required. And you can see here, I'm identifying industry cluster allies and along with industry attraction targets that are highlighted in the orange boldface. So you've got the villages, tourism and the arts, agriculture and food, manufacturing, distribution, and high value added service. And again, those circled in orange are industry attraction targets, but the others are targets for industry retention and expansion. And the value you can achieve from that is at least equal to the attraction. So, all of those pieces need to be part of the economic development mix. And then areas of special focus, quality of life, and workforce. And those are all about bringing or maintaining and increasing the talent base in the county to support these high value added opportunities. And making this happen requires a network of allied support organizations. And you can see what I've tried to do here is to identify at these different junctures who are the potential support opportunities here. For example, it could be SUNY and the Workforce Development Board, you see at the top, going clockwise, the IDA and Mohawk Valley Regional Economic Development Council, IDA and Mohawk Valley Edge, and so on. So you can see this requires a network of partnerships. No one organization can do this alone. And really over the last couple of years, I've been involved in looking at what's the best way to maintain a sustainable economy and sustainable response in the face of crises like COVID. And what came out of that research was places that did best with that were places that had existing interorganizational relationships. If there were partnerships already in place, they were much better at responding. And I think that's kind of a general principle about how to do this kind of work, whether it's responding to a particular economic crisis or just the ongoing day-to-day work of economic development. If there's a network that can support those activities, that can bring together the different types of support and expertise that are required relatively easily and quickly, that's a strong competitive advantage. So that's really my summary of the presentation. And this is again from the original presentation, but I think it's worth mentioning again, just to thank the folks that were involved most heavily in this process, the Economic Development Committee, the Business Investment Committee, and the Technical Advisory Committee for the planning process itself. So, this was really a team effort and was really a great pleasure to participate in it. And I think it provides a foundation, given the hard work that folks have done, for a discussion about how we move forward. So I will stop the share at that point.
Thank you, Peter. I'm not sure if I'm back. I don't know where my helper went.
but here comes the camera. Thank you, Peter. That was tremendous. I'm going to ask the folks in the room, and I just want a head nod, and then we'll keep on track of our agenda. Does that information feel outdated to you from 2018, or does it feel current? So does it feel outdated? Head nods, please. Yes or no? Yes or no? Head nods. What do you, no? Okay, so we've got some movement there. Good to see. I don't feel like that information's outdated. I feel like what Peter Fairweather recommended was accelerated because of COVID. And I think the notion of the groups working together is exactly why we're here today, is to reset on what those recommendations were 5 years ago. We've set a process so we can all come back to the table and say, some of it works, we've been working on some of it, but we want to move a little further in this direction. And that's exactly what our professional facilitator in Robin is going to listen for and find those common themes. So next, we're going to move right into our presentations from our key stakeholder groups. Thank you, Peter. Peter will be available for questions and certainly comments that will feed back through him and back to you, however we want to work that. But you've been a tremendous resource. So next up will be our presentation from Schoharie County Government, and that is Alicia Terry as the chair of the Economic Development Committee. Unmute here. Yeah. Thank you. We're going to find your presentation. Oop, wrong one. Bum, bum, bum. Speed through Peter's presentation. And we're going to start here. This. There you have it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning. And again, I have to say how exciting it is for me to be here again this morning and to speak in this role. Some of you may be aware that I had worked for county government for a long time in the role of economic development and planning, and I've now had an opportunity to return to government in a little bit different role as chair of the Economic Development Committee. So I am, again, very excited to be here this morning. I'm excited to see everyone who's engaged in this process, and I'm so glad we've got folks online joining us as well. I'll try to stay within my 5 minutes, but again, I'll warn everybody, as a longtime bureaucrat and now a politician, you might be in a little trouble with that. But you know, what is government without plans? And let's face it, we all do a really good job of putting plans together. Sometimes we don't always refer to them as often as we should, but in thinking about this morning and what some of the things that we needed to bring to the table in terms of accomplishments for the county, I wanted to point out, as Julie reminded everybody, that the county has initiated a number of plans, the most recent being the county site improvement strategy that was actually funded and championed by the Mohawk Valley Economic Development District. But it was with support from county government. That report was issued and adopted in January of 2022. It actually grew out of Peter Fairweather's report, which again, the county took the lead on and adopted in November of 2018. And for those of you that know me a little better, you know that agriculture is absolutely my passion and drives me in many ways. And I would be remiss in not mentioning that the county also updated its Ag and Farmland Protection Plan, and that was actually adopted 6 years ago this month in March of 2017. So more recently, some of the policy-making decisions that the County Board of Supervisors has undertaken that relate to this discussion around economic development. We include a memorandum of agreement with the Industrial Development Agency, providing funding to them for a 5-year period of time. Well, what's the big deal about that? Well, actually, it is a really big deal. The county had not put funding into its industrial development agency in decades, as we like to joke about at the Board of Supervisors table. So it had been at least 30 years since there had been any type of direct funding to the IDA from county government. There are plenty of examples around the state where that type of support happens. And one of the goals that the county board had in 2022 was to try to strengthen the IDA. And we did work through that MOU process and establish that funding. Something else happened in 2022 that was pretty exciting. For the first time ever, the county actually has established a set aside fund reserve account for a small portion, it's 0.5% of the sales tax collected to be earmarked for economic development. The formula for sharing sales tax amongst the towns and the villages in the county hadn't been updated again in about 30 years. And so in 2022, the county board worked through a process to realign that sales tax sharing, as well as to create this special set aside for economic development. In the 2021 and 2022 budgets, the county did two things. Number one, they did establish a new position in the community planning department, specifically targeted to have a staff person to work with our villages. And then with our 2023 budget adoption, we did recreate the county planning and community development department. I would be remiss if I didn't remind everybody that included in the county budget is actually a list of goals and objectives for all county departments and functions, including economic development and tourism. So if you go to the very back of the book, not something that everybody always refers to, that's there. And then with the onboarding of a new ag economic development specialist, the implementation roundtable has been restarted. And again, that was about a 4-year hiatus. Recent investments by county government include the micro enterprise program. There was one that had been initiated in 2018 that provided funds to 7 businesses. And again, we have a current grant application that was awarded for another 7 businesses that's ongoing right now. And in fact, if you do have a business that might be interested that employs less than 5 people, please get a hold of Shane Nickel, because Shane is our contact person on that program. COVID brought about America Rescue Plan Act funding for the counties. And again, this was something that counties had to decide how they were going to invest those funds, and they could not necessarily offset traditional government financing for programs. So the county actually has a special ARPA committee that meets on a regular basis. I co-chair that with Alex Lewininsky, who is the chair of the finance committee. And some of our investments that we have approved already, and some of them are, again, works in progress, include site control for the site currently or commonly known as Shad Point, working with the Village of Cobleskill and Soil and Water to improve water quality for the Cobleskill Reservoir, working with the fairgrounds on a sewer extension, critical broadband planning that we're working on with SEEK, an investment in business park infrastructure in Schoharie that's being supported by the High Bridge investment, and then also funding to the Richmondville Sewer District. So that's some of this hard connectivity that Peter is referring to. So we'll move on to some of our economic development priorities for 2023, 2024. And again, like any good group of politicians, boy, we've got to have plans and we've got to have goals. So our board chair, Bill Federici announced the 2023 board goals. And again, this was a collaborative effort. There are 16 members of the county board that all chimed in on this. And one of the special committees that he created, which is aside from our standing committee of economic development, is one specifically to look at whether or not the county should invest in an in-house focal point for economic development. So that's question number one for that committee. We've been delighted with the partnership with Destination Marketing Corporation, but we want to make sure that, again, we're not missing anything with that relationship. So that's the second bullet point for that committee. And what other areas or recommendations that the committee identifies. I'll again refer to the county budget book. And again, sometimes my peers, if you're at a county board meeting, will kind of chuckle with me because I bring that book with me everywhere. In fact, it's in the car this morning. But following up on Peter's Shaping the Way Forward, our economic development strategy, since that strategy was adopted, our county administrator and budget officer has made sure that it references the specific 4 action items that Peter had crafted in the plan. So again, I won't read each of these bullet points, but in a nutshell, building institutional capacity, building hard connectivity, building soft connectivity, and ensuring the effectiveness of local policies and regulations. Again, these are all part of the adopted budget that we as the county board use to make decisions going forward through the year. In addition to economic development goals, the ag program under Nick Kosman has identified some goals for 2023, and that includes increasing access to resource incentives and funding for farmers in the county, trying to identify and rectify roadblocks that might prevent projects from locating, working with businesses on development and expansion of their products or services or their enterprise, understanding that there needs to be a relationship with all entities involved in economic development, and trying to ensure effective and transparent communication amongst projects and resources so that everything gets used to its fullest and best potential. Because let's face it, nobody's here has unlimited resources, whether it's time, money, people, or tangibles. So the county, what we're hoping to get out of this strategic alignment process is an opportunity to work through what I'm going to call the growing pains. Man, there's been a tremendous amount of discussion about economic development and tourism over the last 4 or 5, 3 months. Let's harness that energy. Let's see if we really can't polish this effort in economic development in a united front for Schoharie County. We're looking at this starting a conversation or as a starting point for conversations about those opportunities and challenges. Well, Peter outlined them in his report, and they still seem pretty fresh. You know, are there some new threats out there that we're missing that perhaps we didn't catch in 2018? And what we're also hoping is that this allows all the economic development entities to create a collaborative direction forward, maximizing the investments of time and money to yield results. Some of you may have heard me say before, I like to say that, you know, we're all given with a certain finite amount of energy, and we get to decide how we're going to use it. This is an opportunity for Schoharie County collaboratively to decide how we're going to use it. I'm going to close my remarks with a statement that's actually attributed to King Solomon. And King Solomon, in very wise words that were applicable thousands of years ago, that still are relevant today, said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll get somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. The next up will be the CEO of Destination Marketing Corporation. That's Cassandra Harrington. So Cassandra, will have you come to the front. We'll get the presentation started here. And I think the camera will be on. All yours.
Thank you. I have to say the irony is not lost on me in that here in agricultural Mecca and at SUNY Cobleskill, where silos are very crucial to success, that we're talking about how to break down those silos and work together. So I'm happy to be here. I'm Cassandra Harrington. As Julie said, I'm the president and CEO of Destination Marketing Corporation. Just a little bit of a backstory on DMC and to hopefully eradicate any confusion on our brand. Destination Marketing Corporation is a private nonprofit 501c6 based out of Cooperstown, New York, which was formed in 2014, previously a county department to promote tourism in Otsego County. They privatized, formed a board of tourism professionals that were able to advise the director and the staff and best practices and how to bring in people and really focus on driving overnight stays. And so from 2014, that organization's been growing in both capacity and output ever since. And in 2017, when Schoharie County asked put out for bid their tourism department, if anybody's interested in promoting Schoharie County, please let us know. So I saw it as an opportunity to share overhead costs, which would then increase the ability for us to spend more marketing for both counties. And it has been what I think a beautiful marriage ever since. And for the last couple of, well, I guess it's been almost a year now, we've been working on our own individual strategic alignment with New York's Best Experiences, Josiah Brown, who has helped us really reframe our mindset. So we're no longer strictly focused on bringing in overnight stays, but we're recognizing that the work that we are doing is also economic development. And through that process, we have since updated our mission and our vision. And so the new Destination Marketing Corporation mission is to steward local economic vitality through tourism generation and destination management, which results in business development, pride of place, historical preservation, enhanced quality of life for our residents, as well as a memorable visitor experience. With a vision to be a community leader, partner, and resource in economic development through tourism generation. As a result of DMC's visitor economy management, our destination is valued as a vibrant place to play, live, and work. So we specifically said play, live, work, because one of the things that has happened during and prior and post pandemic is that folks now have the ability to choose where they live first, because they can typically work from wherever it is that they live. So we're seeing some exodus from cities where folks are seeking out rural areas to live where they want to play and then work from there. And every year, the I Love New York commissions tourism economics to do a report called The Economic Impact of Visitors. And we get this report, what I feel like is a little bit too late in the year, but now we have 2021 numbers. And so we all know that 2022 was much greater than 2021 as far as numbers. So what I'm about to share with you are, I think, staggering numbers, but keep in mind too that they've grown exponentially since this report has come out, which then says traveler spending in Schoharie County is an $82 million industry. So that's taking in lodging, recreation, food and beverage, retail, transportation, second homeowners, and the money that's coming into the community from those outside. We've seen significant regional growth. And so in 2021, tourism generated $5.1 million of local taxes in 2021. That is, for reference, 57% of this year's budget for the county highway department. I also called up the Director of Emergency Services, Mike Hartzell, and I said, what would you do with $5.1 million? And he said, oh, he got really excited and really was thinking about the capabilities of putting more emergency medical response vehicles throughout the county, dedicated county staffing that could tend to those folks so that it doesn't take 25 minutes to get an ambulance to Sharon Springs. Lots of things that we can do with this development money that's coming in via tourism. And we are on a steady path of growth. So occupancy tax in 2021 was just rebounding from the pandemic, but we were well positioned in Schoharie County to do so. Folks were looking for outdoor recreation and rural areas, big into agritourism. And so we actually rebounded, I think, a little bit better than most. And then in 2022, Schoharie County collected the most occupancy tax in a single year than it ever has, and that is without an increase in the occupancy tax, simply efforts of increased promotion and collection efforts from the county. And with all those numbers, this is the key takeaway from their report that I like to share is that were it not for tourism generated state and local taxes, the average household in Schoharie County in particular would have to pay an additional $774 to maintain the same level of government revenue and to execute the services provided by that government revenue. That's a big number, I think, for individual households, and it certainly adds up. So we are in the process of, we're looking at how we can play a role in facilitating the economic development to increase the amount of money that's coming into the county and to bolster the relationships that we already have. What can we do in order to do that? So Alicia mentioned the roundtable. We dusted off the 2017 Agricultural and Farmland Protection Plan and have since had a couple of meetings where we're discussing what are the needs and how can we address them? What resources do we have in order to address them? And one of the elements of that is agritourism. There are folks who live in this city who've never seen a cow. There are folks who live in this city who would pay money to clean out horse stalls. I can't make this up, but it is, and it's a huge thriving sector. Agritourism is a great opportunity for us to bring folks in from outside of the area. And along with that rural experience that they're seeking, our non-traditional lodging, since we lack flag properties, is where they're looking to stay. They would prefer to come in and stay in a mountain cabin and then go play on a farm. And that's all part of the experience. And we have that. So we are trying to figure out how we can reach out to those farms and help with their promotion. We're working on a PR campaign with Nick Kosman and Cornell Cooperative Extension in ways in which we can connect them to us, because chances are many of them don't realize the tourism potential that they have, or maybe just need the marketing assistance and don't know that we exist because they aren't familiar with the tourism promotion office. And Nick actually just sent out a survey at the beginning of the year asking, how familiar are you with agritourism, and is it something that you're interested in? And the majority of the over 50 respondents that replied to the survey said, I'm very interested in learning more. So it's a huge opportunity for us to seize, and one that we've set as one of our top priorities. Harnessing and nourishing the pride of place. It's a deliberate choice to live in a rural community. It is not based on, convenience and commuting distance and walkability. It is because people want to live here. And one of the things that we discovered during our destination assessment is that folks are really proud to be here. There's a lot of pride of place. And what I would like to do is turn that around into a PR campaign that could then be used to recruit new residents. residents and new businesses to show the quality of place and that the folks that are here love it here. And this is why. And there's so many different stories. Everybody's got a different one. And through a variety of lenses, I think that is an opportunity for us to seek out new residents and new businesses alike. Also too, to connect with HR departments for recruitment materials. We already produce a website that garners a lot of attention in what to do and where to go and where to eat. And that along with the travel guide that we produce can be used for recruitment materials. Why aren't the hospitals using this to show people what there is to do here? And so opening up that line of communication, seeing what their needs are. I would like to know more if people aren't staying, why? And is that something that we can help maybe better communicate or connect them with the resources that they don't yet have? Data. So I hope that one of the things that we can come to the table with is an increased amount of very crucial, accurate data that could be used for recruitment and retention. We have had historically a company called Rove that was providing us with geolocation data. That creepy, like I'm gonna track your cell phone and know where you sleep and know where you go during the day data. It's really helpful for us to have that information so that we can then fish where the fish are and advertise to folks that want to see it. We know they want to see it because it's a popular drive market for us. We're switching data companies. We're making a significant investment in one that provide us with a ton more data, not just where they're coming from, but spend data, where they're coming from and what they're spending their money on while they're here and more. So I'm in the process right now. Yesterday was my first email from them to initiate my onboarding with them. And so that data platform will also measure the success of our advertising campaigns and our social media performance. More to come on that, but I have heard that sometimes the onboarding can take up to a year. So we are going to try our best to keep that, that going full steam ahead so that we can take advantage of that data. And I do believe once it is all set and ready for review, it will be backdated to 2018, I believe. So we will have historical data to do comparisons with. And to inform residents of the economic impact of tourism. I think all of these things combined will raise the profile of what we're doing and the tourism potential of the community, and the fact that it's a $5.2 million industry and that it's saving them money. You know, the ultimate customer of the tourism industry is really the residents, because the money that's coming in that they're spending is what is contributing to our local economy that keeps everything moving. And those are our top priorities, but I'm also open to more if more come out of this, this discussion. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next step, in the interest of time, and so everybody knows, my associate Sam has already created a resource portal that everyone will be able to access on the SEEK website that will have all of these presentations. It will even have the county budget book listed there. So everybody can travel with it wherever they go. So next up is our retiring Chief Executive Officer after 2 decades of service, Ron Filmer, for the Schoharie County Industrial Development Agency. And he may have one of his board members pipe in. I think it'll be hard for them to sit quietly. But Ron, please step forward and we'll get your presentation up on the screen here. And it's all yours.
Just hit, or you,
You just hit the down button, just to go to the next slide. And Ron was very disciplined in putting his presentation together, accomplishments, priorities, and what he hopes to get out of strategic
I'm
alignment.
just following along your with your guidelines. I'll be relatively quick. The IDA was formed back in 1972, and I won't bore you in the last 50 years since I'll just keep it short on what's been recent. I've been around since 1999. It was after 94 was one of the biggest projects. Well, I'll start, just give you a quick back. In the 80s, the Guilford, at that time, the Guilford Mills building was established. Was a farm out on Mineral Springs Road. And it was an interknitting plant, and it had 500-600, jobs there. Unfortunately, over time, and went to Mexico and down south and whatever. So eventually that business folded, but now it's been taken over, and it's vibrant. In the 90s, an accomplishment was obviously the Walmart distribution plant in the town of Sharon, village of Sharon, actually. It was annexed in. And that maintains 500-600 jobs, full-time equivalents. Ever since then, it's been the pilot, which is one of our benefits. It's been extended for the last probably 5-6 years, and it has 3 or 4 more years to go. But certainly a valuable employer. Since the 2000s, we've run a loan program, or have run a loan program. It's kind of been shut down by the state, and as they morphed into something else. But it was started by Jody Sekreski back in the early 2000s, and he asked the IDA to run it after he received the funds from the state. So we've done that, and we had done it, and it was over $1 million in revolving loan funds. It's probably helped over 30 businesses. And so it's been fairly successful. They're all small business, just like the next program, the micro grant program. And we've had, in the recent times, we've run 2 of them. And, under 5 people, Alicia kind of alluded to that, all over the county. These are countywide programs. They're smallish grants, smallest meaning anywhere from 5 to 25,000, working capital mostly, and equipment. They can fund construction, but it tends to be the other 2. And the requirement is a job or 2. So they do have to create a job or be a low moderate income themselves. The next step up from the micro program is a small business assistance program. And that gives you more money, essentially. It can go to 35,000 a job. And in recent times, we've run 3 of them. Small business grants result in 245,000 coming into the county, 3 different businesses, and they created 11 new full-time equivalent people. So it works really well, and it's real specific. The micro program is actually a program, not targeted at any one business when you apply, and you hope to get businesses coming in. And the small business assistance program is when you actually help a target business that's come to you for assistance and wants to expand, and you try to help them out. Of course, going onward and upward, it's the pilot program, which tends to be a little bit bigger than the first 2 programs as far as company size goes. With all the fees, it's the payment in lieu of tax program. It's what most people associate an IDA with. It's designed to attract business or expand business in the county. 6 companies, and I've mentioned Walmart, but 6 companies are currently participating. They have, like I said, over 500 employees. The latest one that we've done is located in the town of Schoharie. American Recycling is the name, and they hope to build a 40,000 square foot building and employ 10 new people. And we hope it to be successful. It's targeted for this summer. So we continue on with them. The payment in lieu of tax program obviously is the real estate tax benefit program, but it also helps with sales tax exemptions and mortgage recording tax exemptions. And if we're lucky enough to have a manufacturing or a firm that provides a value-added product, we can obtain tax exempt financing for them, which obviously reduces the amount of interest, payments they have to make, and it's a value to the company for that reason. As part of the IDA, we're associated with Peter Pearweather's report. He illustrated the regions that we're associated with. 2 of them, which is the Southern Tier East and the Mohawk Valley Mohawk Valley Economic Development District. So we're a member of those boards. They both have loan funds. Those loan funds are dedicated to the area, and they're and the funds themselves are dedicated to B loans. So therefore we serve on that, and we tried, obviously, there's a member on from each county that's on that board. And so we can, help our own companies present their funds and be a voice for them. The business attraction, which has become, more and more important, as all the economic development outfits are asked to try to attract businesses from the state leads. Julie, it tends to be our person, along with Shane Nickel from the county. And we collaborate and try to say what we can do for the companies and offer them sites for that reason. For priorities, the organizational is, obviously the county, and Alicia said it already, is trying to build capacity in the IDA. The IDA has been run as much as myself and even before me for a while. And initially, the IDA was served by 2 people. There were full-time county employees doing also planning. And eventually it kind of morphed into just a part-time person for whatever reason. And that's where I stand. So the county is trying to enhance that position to be a full-time by allocating some funds to the agency. As part of our relocation process and enhancement, it's possible that we're going to link up with SEEK in the village of Schoharie to help maintain an office, and et cetera. And then the last but not least is the effective management of services, the real property and pilot agreements. Moving right along to the business development, we're looking to advance viable projects in the hopper, so to speak, which includes the Schoharie exit projects, which we're very excited about. The town of Cobleskill project, which we hope it comes right after the town of Schoharie project, or concurrently with it, actually. County's already put some ARPA funding in it. The supervisor from Cobleskill is very much involved in it. And if we can get some land development, which is one of the wish lists, one of the projects on my wish list over the years, and it just for capacity, we haven't been able to do it. And hopefully that funding is there, and we're able to succeed with building another, build ready site, which is extremely important in this time, because companies, when they come to Schoharie County or any county, they take a while to make a decision, but once they make the decision, they want to do it yesterday. And if you don't have a site developed, you're kind of way down on their list. They simply won't come. So the site's very important to have ready and available. To try to get more people and induce more projects, we're trying to do simplify the benefit availability. And that means basically streamline it. And hopefully we're able to, working with the county board and our agencies, make it easier to obtain. Recently, with Julie's help and leadership, the IDA looked into distressed areas in the county. It's another incentive for the state, and you can operate, the IDA can operate and do more types of businesses under a distressed area. So we've identified them officially now. And so it just opens up more opportunity. And again, the last one has been touched upon, just the incentive schedule. Right now, our incentive schedule is one size fits all. It's if a business comes in and if they're eligible and the boards decide that they want to help the business, it's a 50%. It's a 10-year program, and most businesses are actually looking for 15 or 20. But our 10-year program, any increase in value that they put into the property is exempt for 5 years, and then in year 6, it starts at a 50% level for taxes, and it works its way up to 100% in 10% increments. It's been very effective at times over 30, 40, 50 years. But right now, with whether it's the cost increases of doing and the capital considerations, that's probably why people are asking for 15 or 20. So we hope to update that and work on it as we go. last but not, I don't know if it's not least, is the strategic alignment expectation. Reveal a better understanding what each organization is doing currently and planning to do. I mean, we've been working on this goal for years, and I think, you know, we work with the county. We've worked with SEEK since day one. And actually the college, you know, we worked with Scott's predecessor, and certainly we work with Scott as we go forward. And so I think that's just a natural progression, and it should be a natural progression as we go farther along. And you can see the 3 to 5 year plan for economic development in the county. I think everybody should work together. I think, you know, Peter's plan is good. And, you know, some people have kind of said, why are we doing this again? And quite frankly, I think it needs to be reviewed. Maybe not even just 5 years, maybe every 2 years. We can see what we've done with Peter's plan. We see what we're not done. We see what's still viable, and then go forward. So I think this is a value, and I think, you know, we ought to embrace it. And then hopefully all the parties that are stakeholders will be involved as we move forward on this. I think that's quick, down and dirty, so to speak. The IDA should be here, and they're willing to work with these folks, and I appreciate your time. And just for reference, if Peter, if you wanted to say anything, Peter or Ben, these are the 5 board members, and certainly I appreciated their time over there. And thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Very good. I'm going to move to the next. Next up is me, Julie Pichetti with SEEK, Schoharie Economic Enterprise Corporation. I am going to be fast because I know that we're a little bit behind schedule. We've got Robin left to speak, and then we have closing remarks by Eric Stein. So SEEK, as you know, was established as a result of the Fairweather Report. So we've used the Fairweather Report as our playbook. What we found, even though we started 6 months before COVID, that did galvanize relationships for us. Cassandra and I started about the same time working in Schoharie County. So we immediately became buddies. We worked with the Chamber of Commerce very closely, council, the senior council, county government, all sorts of folks during COVID. Since that time, we've kind of moved away from some of Peter's language because we found it to be a little industry oriented. His 4 dimensions of build capacity, soft connectivity, hard connectivity, and policies and regulations. We are very mindful of those 4 dimensions in everything we do. We see them as cross-cutting in our initiatives, but we thought we would prop up what we're actually working on so that the community would better understand the initiatives that we undertake. So these highlights are literally from the last year and a half. During our time, we've secured millions of dollars, not nearly as much as SUNY CoSkill, but we've secured millions of dollars. We have helped nearly 75 businesses, and we've channeled resources to those businesses. We are doing work in every single one of the towns in Schoharie County, and we're really proud of that. And we've channeled money directly to the town of Jefferson, to the town of Summit. We're coordinating money in CoSkill, Schoharie, all sorts of good things. So we're really proud of the work that we do. Today we have Sam Forehand that's in the room, who's keeping us all on task and is building everything that you'll be enjoying later. Autumn Roney is starting on Monday with us, which we're super excited. And so this is her crash course orientation. Thank you all. And we do have a number of board members that are participating in this and advisory council members. So together, we've identified these 3 priority areas: industrial strategies, Main Street strategies, and digital strategies. The industrial strategies, as Ron just mentioned, his role has been part-time for 20 years. So we saw an opportunity to help supplement some of his work. So we've been acting as kind of the business development side while Ron's doing all the grunt work and all the administrative work in his shop. We've been doing more of the fun stuff. So we did some planning about regional independent food processing that was inspired by COVID and inspired by an agricultural community. What are the gaps in food supply chains? What are our opportunities? We have a plan. It's hot off the shelf late last year. We last year spent a lot of time in front of Alicia, Supervisor Terry's ARPA committee saying, here's a good idea, here's a good idea, here's a good idea, and helping to direct those dollars. We are also going to be stewarding those dollars. That $750,000 American Rescue Plan Act money is a result of COVID. We have gone direct to Empire State Development for the project Ron mentioned, that's 40,000 square feet. It's a nearly $5 million investment. We went to Empire State Development and said, hey, we've got a company that's going to invest $5 million, build 40,000 square feet, create 10 jobs. We'd like to supplement this. If he comes on the market at his construction costs during COVID, he's going to outprice the rental market. So we need to fill this gap somehow, so that his rent isn't, $20 a square foot when people are accustomed to paying 10 to 12. So we got a grant to supplement that. We hosted site tours last summer. We brought in experts from other IDAs, rural IDAs across the county, across the state. We brought in engineers, we brought in elected officials, and we put boots on the ground walking this corridor. But Peter Fairweather said, one of your really strong opportunities. It's going to be tough to make a go of it. We started working with the IDA and the county and the towns and brought other specialists to the county, boots on the ground to walk those sites. So we have some good information and intel on how to move forward. Just recently, New York State, we follow the new funding programs out of New York State. Fast New York is specifically designed for industrial site readiness. We're working with the town, that Highbridge development, and trying to expand the Schoharie Business Park to provide the water and sewer, traffic circulation, pedestrian access, all that good stuff. It'll be about $6 million. So we've facilitated the local match, and we're going to help put the application in for the balance of that $6 million. Then we work on Main Street and digital strategies too. So Main Street, as Peter Fairweather said, the villages are one of our priorities. We've done a lot of work in that area. We cannot take the credit for the New York Forward because that is the work of the villages themselves, filling out those applications, trying once, trying twice, trying 3 times. So congratulations to the village of Sharon Springs. But we want more of our villages to compete and to win. And we did help the village of Schoharie this past year, and they were a finalist in that process. We've attracted a $5 billion real estate investment company to the village of Sharon Springs as well. This is work we did last year. We promoted a couple of sites, the Adler, and that real estate investment company said, hey, we like the village of Sharon Springs. Hey, we like the Adler. Let's talk. Let's figure out how we can put this together. So we've been coordinating 5 different local agencies in addition to the private investor. And we put together a Restore New York application that the village of Sharon Springs sponsored. It's a $1.8 million grant to stabilize the Adler so it doesn't fall down. It's one of our historic district assets. We don't want to lose it. We want to make sure it's stabilized, so that will enable a $38 million development to come behind it. If we lose the building, we don't have that development. So doing all of that front work, I should say. Lodging is a theme. We know it's a theme. We are so proud of all of our local entrepreneurs sprinkled throughout Schoharie County that got into the Airbnb business during the COVID crisis, that helped raise the occupancy tax dollars. In fact, the town of Jefferson is our #1 generating occupancy tax community. #1. I think it's about 20% of the dollars that sales that happen are happening in the town of Jefferson. So that's our front door to Schoharie County. We're still thinking about lodging. We still want to make it happen. Our approach is more likely to be in the boutique opportunities. As Cassandra mentioned, finding more data to support that national flag is work we have to do. And we talked about it years ago. COVID did not help us in attracting that kind of investment. So we're still working on it. Digital strategies. This is the brain trust of 2 of our advisors sitting here, Paul Conroy, Bart Finnegan. They said during COVID, watching our businesses shut down, reading all of the reports, we've got to be online. Our small businesses have to be online. They can't depend on walk-up shoppers. We've got to reach customers across the country, around the world. So we worked with the county, secured a $741,000 grant, served 26 businesses in maybe 14 months. 26 businesses, retained 60 jobs, created 15 new jobs, and got those businesses online with new e-commerce platforms. Pretty excited about that. That's our kickoff for the digital revolution. Meanwhile, the county did put out a request for proposals, hired Midtel to put free Wi-Fi in the village of Schoharie. That was a part of that grant. That just launched in the last couple of weeks. We're super excited about that. There's more to do. Also on the digital strategies, the county has directed $100,000 for us to work with consultants for a broadband plan. How do we get broadband throughout the entire county? We have about 900 homes that are still unserved, completely unserved. We know it's going to cost millions and millions of dollars to get to those homes, but there's $1 billion coming through New York State that we want to be ready for, to take advantage of those dollars to get that last mile built to those last 900 homes. We have engaged a consultant that's going to give us the impact of doing so. That impact will lead to small business development and sales opportunities, but also health indicators, innovation, education indicators. So we'll have very specific Schoharie County data in the next 6 weeks on what it means to have broadband built out throughout our region. Priorities and measures of success moving forward. This is really important to us. Strategic alignment is really important to see. We cannot do it alone. As you heard today, there's a ton of work getting done in economic development. It's only 5 organizations that spoke today. We know there are folks out there doing more work in economic development. So making sure we're aligned in our priorities and really leveraging those resources is most important to seek in this year and the years forward. We will continue to work in Main Street vitality and digital strategies. You notice that industrial kind of dropped off because we're anticipating that the IDA is going to have a bigger role, a full-time role, a stronger role in industrial development. We measure our success in economic development primarily through investments in job creation and retention. SEEK, with our advisory council, intentionally expanded those measures. So that's not just about growth. It's not just about jobs and investment. It's about engagement. How are we working together? How are we engaging the community in our missions? It's about resources, making sure we're channeling resources into our community that we have access to. It's about character. This isn't about building warehouse after warehouse after warehouse in Schoharie County. That's not our game. It is about putting big job opportunities in the right place where the land use allows, where the transportation corridor makes sense. But it's more so about that agricultural community, that tourism that Cassandra spoke to, that Nick is fixated on, that SUNY Cobleskill is the regional institution for state institution, Northeast National Practical Institution. How do we create that smart growth, really focus in our really wonderful village centers, 6 villages, 8 historic districts in Schoharie County? That's fundamentally important to us as an organization. Last but not least is, what does strategic alignment mean to us? It means that these organizations minimally are working together to build the star, to point to the North Star. We want to work with all of the organizations in Schoharie County to become the destination of choice. As Cassandra mentioned, we want this to be a place where people not only come to visit, but they come to stay, to continue to live and work and play in Schoharie County. We believe this process, and Robin's about to step up and tell us more about it, we believe this process is the way in which all of our organizations come together, identify our priorities, talk about resources that we need. How do we leverage our limited resources? And then how do we measure our success? Let's not just get on this rat race and run down the road and say, we did it, we did it, we did it. Why does it matter? How are we measuring our success as a community? And what does that look like? And that's why we've hired Robin Jorgensen, a professional strategic planner and facilitator with an unbiased approach. She doesn't have the economic development experience that Peter Fairweather has, but she has the strategic planning and alignment experience that we need today as a community. So with that, I'll stop talking. Again, here's a quick glance at all of the folks that are involved with SEEK as Robin steps forward, and then Robin's going to go through her presentation. And again, Eric Stein is going to close. And then the resource portal is available for everybody because this is a ton of information. So thank you.
Almost done, guys, I promise. All right, good morning, everyone. I know some people in the room, but there's many faces that I do not know. So for those of you that do not know me, my name is Robin Jorgensen. I own a company called Women Igniting Change, and I'm a business consultant and strategist with over 25 years of experience in strategic planning and programming. I've had the privilege and honor of working with organizations around the world, both large and small. And everywhere I go, and I've told Marian this, everywhere I go, of course, people say, well, where are you from? I'm from Cobleskill, New York. Where is that? So I get to talk about Schoharie County literally around the world and tell them what an amazing, incredible place this is. So I'm so thrilled to be a part of this process. So the way that we're approaching this is through a 4-phased approach, and I'll dive into each one in just a moment. Phase 1 is all about preparation and foundation. Phase 2 is what I call a voice of the system. Phase 3 is define and implement. And phase 4 is how do we track and manage the progress that we're going to have. So phase 1, preparation and foundation, we began this back in February, again, with Peter Fairweather's report, brushing it off, revisiting it. What does that look like coming through COVID? We're on the other side of this ish. What does it look like now? Re-looking at it 5 years later. So that's the foundation. And we're also going to be leveraging 4 guiding strategic alignment principles. 1 is stakeholder engagement, ensuring that we have as many voices as we possibly can to get what I call a 360-degree approach to this economic alliance. 2, a shared vision, ensuring that all of these key stakeholders are working together and collaboratively toward that shared vision. The 3rd is strategic alignment, creating that mission, the vision, that strategic imperative together. And the 4th one is probably one of the most important, ensuring that this is an iterative process. This is not stagnant. We want this to be a living, breathing document that you use consistently, revisit quarterly, make course corrections. It doesn't live on a shelf. So those are the 4 guiding principles. Phase 2 is what we're in now. So this is what I call a voice of the system. This is one of my most favorite things in the world to do. I love this dearly. We're going to be doing this the end of March and early April. We're going to be conducting focus groups and key stakeholder interviews. And all of the questions are going to tie back to those 4 key dimensions from shaping the way forward. Building capacity, hard and soft connectivity, policies and regulations, and we'll also touch on quality of living as well. So for the focus groups, we've identified 5 target areas that we're going to focus on for these focus groups. The first one is tourism, culture, and the arts. The second is targeted industry, manufacturing, distribution, those high value add. The third one is ag and food. The 4th is workforce development. And the last one are villages and Main Street. So those are the 5 focus groups. Typically, these are roughly 12 to 15 individuals. They're 90 minutes in length. They are in person. President Terenzio has been kind enough to offer this space, right, that we're sitting in for these focus groups starting at the end of March. So the way that we're doing this, it's a 5-step process. The first one is discussion of strengths, because in each of those dimensions, there are areas that are working really, really well. Let's identify what those are. Phase 2 is the future project. So we've identified what the strengths are. What do we want this to look like 2, 3, 4 years down the road. If I handed you a magic wand and said, make this up, here's the vision of the future perfect, what does that look like? Identifying that. The third step in the process is, where are we now in relation to that future perfect? Let's find out what that gap is. The fourth one are exceptions. Typically in any area, there is 1 or 2 subtle points of that area that are working extremely well. Let's identify what those are, those exceptions. And are there any lessons there or nuances that we can pull into other areas of that dimension to beef those up to match it? And the last one are proposed action steps. What are the small 3 to 5 actions that we could take to move forward in each of those dimensions? So that's the focus groups. The key stakeholder interviews, these are done virtually. They're one-on-one interviews with me. They're typically 45 to 60 minutes in length. These questions are a little bit deeper. They're a little bit more strategic. And this is where we really want to dive in and find out from leaders in the community, what are the perceptions of those dimensions? What are the perceptions of where we are right now as it relates to economic development? What has the impact been? What do we want it to be? What are the challenges and obstacles that we're sitting in right now, either as a result of the pandemic or outside of the pandemic? What are those challenges? What are the obstacles that we have to overcome? Again, that desired vision, that North Star, identifying what that is. And lastly, what are the opportunity costs? Because we can identify 3, 5, 10 things that we want to do in that desired vision from a cost standpoint, from a resource standpoint. If we're focusing on these 2, there's an opportunity cost that these 4 don't get done. So identifying that as well. And those will be done end of March, early April. So here are the schedule for the focus groups, and the key stakeholder interviews are going to be sprinkled in between. All of this is starting 2 weeks from Monday on March 27th, and you can see the timeline here. At the end of this presentation and on the resource portal that Sam has put together, there will be a link for you to sign up for any of these focus groups. So we invite you to please do so. And again, they start 2 weeks from Monday. And then once we've done the focus groups, we've done the key stakeholder interviews, me and my team compile an executive summary of all of those findings. And our goal is really to identify what are the key issues that emerged from both of those activities. What are some of the emerging patterns and themes? And we always find them, that's the fun part, is seeing what the commonality is throughout. And it really provides us some insights into people's perceptions, their behaviors, and their motivations. Once that is compiled, we're going to revisit that back to you in mid-May and present those findings. And that's really going to be the basis as we move into phase 3, and that is define and implement. So that will be late May, early June. And this is where we say, okay, as a result of that voice of the system, what is our objective as this alliance? What is the goal that we want to achieve? What is the advantage of putting this together? What is the value proposition for this alliance? What is the scope? Again, we can have 27 things that we want to do, not always feasible. So what will the alliance do? And what will it not do in service of the things that you actually want to do? And then what are those key initiatives and key priorities that you want to put forward for the next 3 years? And not just put them forward, but identify the business case for every single one of them. And then put together a prioritization metrics as to what we start with, what's second, and what's third. So that's define and implement. And then phase 4, Julie referenced this as well. This is where you track and manage, and this is ongoing. When I first went into leadership as a former corporate exec, the best piece of management advice I ever got was inspect what you expect. Best piece of management advice ever. So this has to be revisited on a quarterly basis. Inspect what you expect. Is it working? Where do we need to pivot? And this is where we're going to create the tools and the resources that are required for you to keep this moving forward. So from those key initiatives, we're going to be creating dashboards for each one. We're going to be creating project plans and project implementation timelines for each of those initiatives, creating after action review questions that you can ask once something is complete to get the lessons from that and pull those forward into the next one. And then most importantly, ensuring that you're revisiting this quarterly and making sure that you're pulling the learning forward and moving on from there. That was pretty fast, but I'm watching time. So that's what we're doing. Thank you so much.
That was really fast. Robin's good. The resource portal that we've referenced a few times, we popped up the slide online. I think our folks in the Zoom room are reading that. This is the portal. We will also send everybody an email thanking you for coming with the secret password to get into that portal. So you can't just go there today. Well, you will when we send you when we send it to you. So last but not least is is the College Council current chairman, but Eric wears many hats in our community as a Sikh founding member, as well as a retired executive for Cobleskill Regional Hospital and the Bassett Healthcare Network. So thank you, Eric, for coming forward. I'm going to, I think, officially shut this down so the camera can shine on you, Eric. I'm not
But
sure if
Julie-
there's more I need to do there.
We good?
Anything else on the camera you need to do?
What Julie's saying is Eric's a guy who can't say no. It's said that when you're making a presentation and you want to get a point across, the two key things to remember are primacy and recency. Primacy is the most important thing you want to say it first. Recency says the thing you want everybody to remember, say it last. So everything in between is filler. So primacy. I think that Peter Fairweather in his representation of his report hit the primacy nail on the head in both the SWOT analysis and then the rest of the report saying, this is what you got to do to address the things on that SWOT analysis, all of which are achievable, all of which are advantageous. So the primacy message is we've got to stay the course on that report, and the straw vote of nodding heads say that basically everybody in this room agrees that that report is still relevant and on target. We got to stay the course. I'll get to recency at the end, like you're supposed to. I think that the discussions and the presentations show that we have a very rich community in many, many regards, culturally, economically, brain trust, resource availability, the ability to attract money and businesses and jobs. And it really struck me with the SUNY Cobleskill wonderful video that this college probably brings in more people and more money into Schoharie County than any other single entity in the community. So we are really, really blessed and advantaged by having a college in our community. You don't see that in every little college. And not only bringing in money, but what kind of money? Grants, other people's money, innovation, development, and workforce development. So this is an organization our alliance really needs to cherish. I also want to give a shout out to Dr. Terenzio for another matter. 5 years ago, she pulled together a little group, I don't think it was in this building, of what I'll call community influencers to talk about, doing a significant economic development study and, would we support that and be involved in it? And I realized sitting here that that meeting demonstrated to me that I'm a public optimist and a private pessimist. Because in that meeting, I'm a newbie. I've only been here 20 years, but in that 20 years, I've been through numerous economic development studies and this and that, the other thing, and plans and focus groups. and they never went anywhere. So privately, I'm thinking to myself, oh, here we go again. How much is this going to cost? And it'll sit on the shelves. Publicly, the optimist said, we got to keep trying, and maybe this time is the magic report. And I have to say that 4 or 5 years later, we've accomplished as a community more than we had in my previous 20 years here, as far as really solid economic development planning. SEEK is one piece of that. But I think where we are today is to take a very giant step towards economic improvement and vitality in Schoharie County through this strategic economic alliance. So that's really, really, really important. And I think that all of us in this room are involved with agencies or organizations that are actually doing some pretty remarkable things that maybe people didn't really know about, or recently renewed interest in really investing in economic development. I think the County Board of Supervisors' commitment to those items that Alicia presented is just marvelous. We have not seen that in my short history here. This is really, really a good thing. But it's getting late. The recency part of this is we cannot do this unless we come together. We've had a rich history of independent issues, of working in our own silos, of not really connecting, of being redundant or counterproductive to each other's. We have got to do this together. Primacy, we've got the plan, we got to stick to it. Recency, we've got to do it together. And the people in this room, we're the ones that have to make sure it's done together. So I thank you, and I'll keep my remarks brief, which is a hard thing for me to do. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you so much for being here this morning, listening attentively and absorbing all this information. And we will circle back and invite you to focus group and stakeholder interviews over the next couple of months. So thank you.